Imagine this. You're walking across an empty, quiet field. The grass is tall, the wind is gentle, and suddenly your foot hits something small and hard. You look down, and there it is, a watch. Now pause for a second. What's your first thought? You don't say, "Oh, what a strange rock." You don't assume it just grew there in the soil like a plant. No. Instantly, your mind jumps to a conclusion. This must have been made by someone, a watchmaker. And why? Because the watch has order. It has gears, springs, hands that move in rhythm, all working together for a purpose, to tell time. The complexity and the purpose immediately suggest design. This very intuition gave rise to one of the most famous arguments in philosophy and theology, the design argument, sometimes called the watchmaker analogy. The idea is simple. If a small, ordinary watch demands a watchmaker, then surely this vast, extraordinary universe must have a universe maker, a creator. Think about it. The sky filled with stars moving in precise patterns, the earth spinning at just the right speed, the delicate structure of the human eye. If a watch shows evidence of a designer, then the whole cosmos must shout even louder, "I was designed." It's a powerful image, isn't it? That sense of awe, that instinctive leap from order to a designer. It makes the watch analogy very persuasive. For centuries, this argument has been repeated in pulpits, books, and debates as evidence for God's existence. But what if this analogy isn't as solid as it appears? What if the comparison between a watch and the universe actually hides some deep cracks? One of the greatest philosophers of the Enlightenment, David Hume, asked exactly these questions. And in doing so, he shook the foundations of the design argument. So in this series, we're going to walk through Hume's challenges one by one. Each episode will unpack a different flaw he found in the watchmaker analogy. Today, we've set the stage, the watch in the field, the leap to a designer, and the claim that the universe must work the same way. But next time, we'll ask, is the analogy even fair? Is a watch really comparable to the universe? Stay tuned, because once we start pulling at this thread, the whole watch might come apart. Now let's take a closer look at this comparison. Is a watch really anything like the universe? A watch is small, it's man-made, it's familiar. We know how watches come together because we've seen humans design and build them. But the universe, that's something entirely different. It's vast, mysterious, and beyond our full comprehension. We don't watch universes being made the way we watch watches being made. So, is it really fair to take something as tiny and man-made as a watch and compare it to something as infinite and unknown as the cosmos? Think about it this way. Comparing a watch to the universe is a bit like comparing a toy car to an entire highway system. Yes, both involve movement, but one is simple, crafted in a factory, and sits in your hand, while the other spans thousands of miles, shaped by geography, weather, and human decisions. Or imagine comparing a sewing machine to a galaxy. One is a mechanical device made of gears and levers. The other is a swirling collection of billions of stars moving under the laws of gravity and physics. The categories just don't match. One belongs to human craftsmanship, the other belongs to nature, on a scale we can hardly grasp. So if the analogy itself is weak, the foundation of the watchmaker argument starts to shake. But that's just the beginning. There's another, even deeper problem. If the world really is the product of a designer, then what do we make of all its flaws, the diseases, disasters, and suffering built into it? That's what we'll explore in the next part. Let's move a step further. If the world does reflect design, then we also need to ask, what about its flaws? Think about it. If a machine has defects, we naturally question the skill or character of the maker. A watch that keeps bad time reflects badly on the watchmaker. Now apply this logic to the universe. If the universe is evidence of a designer, then the designer must also take responsibility for everything in it. Not just the beauty, but the disasters too. Look around. Earthquakes level entire cities. Diseases cause suffering generation after generation. injustice and cruelty plague human history. These aren't small mistakes, they're deep scars on the very system we're told is perfectly designed. So here's the philosophical punch. Why assume a perfect, all good God when the world itself looks far from perfect? If the effect mirrors the cause, then maybe the creator isn't flawless. Maybe the designer is limited, careless, or even indifferent. That flips the whole argument on its head. Imagine buying a car that constantly breaks down. Would you call the maker perfect, or picture a house where the roof leaks every time it rains? Would you praise the architect's genius? If we use this everyday logic, then treating the world as evidence of a perfect creator just doesn't add up. The design shows cracks, and those cracks reflect back on the supposed designer. This opens the door to a bold possibility. If the world is messy and flawed, maybe it wasn't the work of a single perfect being at all. Maybe, just like a building made by many workers with different skills, creation itself might be the product of more than one maker, and that's where we'll head next. Now think about it, when we picture a watch, do we really imagine just one person making it from start to finish? Not usually. Watches often involve teams of craftsmen. One designs the gears, another builds the frame, another polishes the glass. And it's not just watches. Look at a cathedral. It may take generations to complete, with multiple architects adding their own ideas. Or take a movie. Sometimes you'll see 2 or even 3 directors sharing the credit. So here's the question. If human creations can be made by many hands, why should we assume the universe must have only one maker? Maybe multiple forces shaped it. Maybe different powers contributed different parts. Or maybe, as some philosophers playfully suggest, the universe went through versions, trial and error, until it reached the state we see today. It's a provocative thought. The design argument doesn't necessarily prove one God. At most, it could point to many. But this raises another issue. Maybe our mistake is deeper. Maybe the universe isn't like a machine at all. What if it's more like a living thing, a tree or an organism that grows and organizes itself from within without any external craftsman? That's the question we'll explore next, the universe as an organism. Let's flip the whole picture. What if the universe isn't like a machine at all? Think about it. A watch is built part by part, screw by screw from the outside. It only works when an external craftsman carefully assembles it. But a tree grows from within. A tiny seed unfolds into roots, branches, leaves, and fruit. No external engineer required. The same with us. An embryo becomes a full human being, not because someone is assembling arms and legs one by one, but because life has its own inner principles of growth. Or take coral reefs. They're not designed by a planner sitting on a throne with a blueprint. They emerge gradually as tiny living organisms build structures over time, shaping vast and beautiful patterns in the ocean. So maybe the universe is not like a watch at all. Maybe it's more like a living organism, something that grows, unfolds, and evolves by its own inner rules. And here's the punch. If the world is a living system, then the watchmaker analogy collapses, because life doesn't require an external craftsman in the same way machines do. But this raises another question. If the universe can grow and organize itself like a living being, could it be that order itself can emerge naturally, even by chance, if given enough time? That's what we'll explore now. Previously, we saw how snowflakes, beehives, ants, and even storms show us that order doesn't always need a conscious designer. Nature itself can create beautiful patterns. But let's push this idea further. Centuries ago, the Epicurean philosophers argued that if the universe has infinite time, then order must eventually appear by chance. Imagine you're shuffling a deck of cards over and over again. Shuffle it enough times and eventually, purely by luck, the cards will land in perfect order, ace through king. Not because anyone planned it, but because endless chances make unlikely outcomes inevitable. Or think of a box of Scrabble letters. If you shook it for eternity one day by pure accident, those letters would spell out a meaningful word, maybe even a whole sentence. It might take an unimaginably long time, but given infinite attempts, order eventually appears. The Epicureans believed the universe could work in the same way. Atoms collide, scatter, join, and break apart. Over countless ages, through endless random combinations, eventually a stable and ordered system like our world could emerge. Not because of a divine craftsman, but because infinite experiments guarantee that sooner or later something orderly survives. So instead of a single act of creation, the universe might be the lucky result of infinite trials, not design but chance, stretched out over cosmic time. But even if that's true, it doesn't fully explain why we humans keep seeing design everywhere. Maybe the real issue isn't the universe itself. Maybe the problem is in how our minds work, and that's exactly where we'll go next. We just explored the Epicurean idea that maybe, given infinite time and random chances, the universe could have arranged itself into order without any conscious designer. But there's still one more layer to this debate, and it comes from looking not at the universe, but at ourselves. Why do we so often assume that the world must have a maker, like a watch has a watchmaker? Maybe the answer lies in the way the human mind works. We're natural builders. We construct houses, machines, tools, and cities. Everywhere around us in human life, order comes from a designer. And so we instinctively project this pattern onto nature. We see a mountain and imagine it crafted. We look at the stars and think of an architect. We find design because we're trained to see it in our own works. Philosophers call this tendency anthropomorphism, the habit of giving human qualities to non-human things. Think of how children talk about the sun smiling or the clouds arguing. In the same way, adults talk about nature as though it were the product of human-like planning. But here's the catch. Nature doesn't always play by human rules. Snowflakes, honeycombs, ant colonies, coral reefs, all these forms of order don't come from a human hand. They grow, they evolve, they emerge. The mistake is assuming that because our works need designers, all order must have a designer too. This insight flips the watchmaker analogy on its head. Maybe the universe doesn't look like a machine built by a craftsman. Maybe it looks like a living process, or like countless patterns of chance woven together by natural laws. And that leads us to the big picture. We've now walked through Hume's major objections. The weak analogy, the problem of flaws, the possibility of multiple creators, the vision of the universe as an organism, the role of chance, and our human tendency to see design where none may exist. We began this journey with a simple image, finding a watch in a lonely field. Its design made it obvious there must be a maker. And from that, many argue, if the watch needs a watchmaker, then surely the universe must need a creator too. But along the way, we saw the cracks in that logic. A watch is not the same as a vast universe. The world is full of flaws, earthquakes, disease, injustice. So why assume its maker is perfect? Even the idea of one single creator is uncertain. Many hands can build one structure. Perhaps the universe isn't a machine at all, but more like a tree that grows on its own. And maybe, given enough time, order itself can emerge from chaos without a designer. Hume's insight is clear. The watchmaker argument doesn't prove a perfect, infinite God. At most, it suggests some kind of intelligence, but never with certainty. So, next time you see a snowflake, a hive, or the night sky, remember, order can come from many paths. A watch may need a maker, but the universe, that's a mystery still far beyond the gears of any pocket watch. This closes our series on Hume's critique. Thank you for listening, and keep questioning, because the questions may matter even more than the answers.